The stench of burning circuitry and ionized plasma filled the bridge of the Dominion's will as Admiral Vathon struggled to maintain his footing. Gravity fluctuated wildly, one moment threatening to crush him against the deck plating, the next leaving him weightless as the ship's failing systems sputtered their last. His compound eyes reflected the carnage displayed across the tactical hologram. 10,000 proud warships of the Xerix Dominion reduced to spinning debris fields, their once gleaming hulls now twisted metal tombs for their crews. The human dreadnought, Iron Resolve, hung amidst the wreckage like some primordial predator surveying its kill. Its angular blackened hull bore the scars of countless hits, yet it remained operational, a testament to the strange, almost organic redundancy of human engineering. Vathon's mandibles twitched involuntarily as he replayed the battle in his mind's eye, each tactical decision leading inexorably to this moment of utter defeat. How had they done it? The question burned through his neural clusters with painful intensity. The Xerix Dominion had waged successful campaigns across 3 galactic arms, conquering 17 spacefaring species before encountering humanity. Their military algorithms had accounted for every conceivable variable: firepower ratios, fleet formations, logistical requirements. The invasion plan had been flawless on paper. 10,000 ships against 100 human defenders at New Carthage. 100-to-1 numerical superiority. Certain victory. Yet here he stood, the sole surviving flag officer of the largest armada ever assembled by the Dominion, defeated by a force that by all rights should have been annihilated within minutes of engagement. The tactical displays told an impossible story. Human ships moving in patterns that defied standard military doctrine, weapons systems adapting mid-battle to exploit weaknesses that shouldn't have been detectable, entire squadrons of Dominion vessels falling prey to tactics that seemed to evolve in real time. A fresh wave of pain shot through Vathon's thorax as another system failed deep within the ship. The damage control displays flickered crimson. Life support was failing, the hull integrity compromised in 17 sectors. It didn't matter now. Nothing mattered except understanding how this catastrophe had occurred and ensuring no other Xerix commander would repeat his mistakes. With trembling appendages, Vathon activated the recorder once more. His voice, when it came, was hoarse with exhaustion and something no Xerix admiral had ever admitted to feeling before: genuine fear. This is Admiral Vathon of the Xerix Dominion 17th Fleet. By the time this message reaches High Command, the invasion force will have been destroyed. I record this not as justification, but as warning. We underestimated the humans in every conceivable way. The memory of the War Council surfaced unbidden. He could still see High Sovereign Craxus's smug expression as he dismissed Vathon's concerns, the derisive clicks of approval from the other fleet commanders. They had all been so certain, so confident in their superiority. Even the intelligence briefings had painted humanity as a fractured, disorganized species, barely capable of maintaining their own colonies, let alone mounting an effective defense against the might of the Dominion. How wrong they had been. Vathon's attention snapped back to the present as the Iron Resolve began moving again, not to deliver the killing blow, that would be unnecessary at this point, but to establish some sort of communications link. The humans wanted to talk. Of course they did. They would want him to surrender, to beg for mercy, to acknowledge their superiority. A bitter laugh escaped his damaged respiratory vents, as if the humans needed any more confirmation of their victory. The wreckage of his fleet was testament enough. He reached for the tactical display, calling up the final moments of the battle once more, studying the patterns, the movements, the impossible adaptability of his enemy. There was a lesson here, if only he could parse it before the end came. Some fundamental truth about humanity that the Dominion had missed in all their analyses and projections. Something terrifying in its simplicity. Humans didn't fight to win, they fought to survive, and that made all the difference. The bridge of the iron resolve hummed with a tense energy, the air thick with ozone and sweat. Captain Elias Vance gripped the command console, his knuckles whitening as he watched the Xerix armada descend upon New Carthage like a swarm of metallic locusts. 10,000 enemy ships blotted out the stars, their formation perfect, their approach methodical. Against them stood his single dreadnought and a handful of support craft, 100 human vessels against an empire's might. "All stations report," Vance said, his voice cutting through the nervous chatter. The response came in clipped tones. "Point defenses at 78% capacity. Main batteries charged and ready. Engineering reports reactor fluctuations in Sector 4. Vance nodded, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. The numbers were impossible, the projections hopeless. And yet, "Activate the Lazarus Protocol," he ordered. The words hung in the air for a heartbeat before his XO, Commander Lee, turned to him with wide eyes. "Sir, that's a colony-wide—" "I know what it is, Commander," Vance interrupted. "Do it." Across New Carthage's surface, dormant installations awoke. Not the standard planetary defenses the Xarix had scanned and accounted for, but something far more insidious. Deep beneath the colony's crust, massive generators hummed to life, their purpose unknown even to most of the human defenders. The Xarix fleet advanced, confident in their overwhelming numbers. Their scanners detected only minimal resistance, a few scattered human ships making token defensive maneuvers. Admiral Vathon's flagship led the vanguard, its massive energy cannons charging for the first orbital strike. Then space itself seemed to shudder. The Lazarus mines detonated in perfect sequence, each one tearing a hole in reality. Gravity twisted and warped as miniature singularities blossomed across the battlefield. Xerix ships caught in the event horizons were crushed like tin cans, their sophisticated armor meaning nothing against the fundamental forces of the universe. Vance watched as entire battle groups disappeared into the swirling vortices. The Xarix formation, so perfect moments before, dissolved into chaos. Ships collided as their navigation systems failed, others firing blindly as their targeting arrays went dark. But the true horror was only beginning. The surviving Xerix vessels scrambled to regroup, their disciplined ranks shattered. Vance saw the moment their commanders realized the truth. This wasn't random misfortune. The mine placements, the detonation timing, it had all been calculated with terrifying precision. "All ships," Vance commanded, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. Execute Phase 2. The Iron Resolve and its support craft moved with sudden, shocking speed. No longer playing defense, they surged forward into the heart of the disordered Xerix fleet. Their attack patterns made no sense by conventional tactics. Feints within feints, apparent retreats that turned into devastating strikes. Vance watched as the tactical display updated in real time, his crew working with the seamless coordination of veterans who had trained for this moment. The Xerix outnumbered them 100 to 1, but in the chaos of the Singularity Mine's aftermath, that advantage meant nothing. "Admiral," his sensor officer called out, "the Xerix flagship is attempting to rally its forces." Vance allowed himself a grim smile. "Right on schedule." He turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare the EMP payload. Target their command cluster." As the Iron Resolve closed the distance, Vance couldn't help but marvel at the Xarix's fatal mistake. They had studied human warfare, analyzed their tactics, prepared for every conventional response. But they hadn't accounted for humanity's greatest strength. the willingness to sacrifice everything, to turn their own colonies into weapons, to fight with a creativity born of desperation. The EMP bomb detonated with silent fury, a pulse of energy that washed over the remaining Xerix vessels like a tidal wave. Shields flickered and died. Weapons systems went dark. Engines sputtered and failed. In that moment of darkness, the human ships struck with surgical precision. Not at hulls or engines, but at life support and command nodes. The Xarix crews would suffocate slowly in the dark, their final moments filled with the terrible understanding of what it meant to wage war against a species that refused to surrender. Vance watched as Admiral Vathon's flagship drifted powerless, its once proud silhouette now just another piece of debris in the graveyard of Xarix ambition. The battle wasn't over yet, but the outcome was certain. Humanity had been outnumbered 100-1, and they were winning. Direct hit on Deck 7, engineering shouted through the comms. Containment fields holding, barely. Vance's eyes darted across the flickering holo display. The remaining Xerix ships, still numbering in the thousands, were reforming into a defensive sphere around Vathon's flagship. Their movements were more erratic now, less predictable. They'd learned from their losses. "They're changing tactics," Commander Lee observed, her fingers flying across her console. "Adjusting shield harmonics to counter our EMPs." A cold smile touched Vance's lips. "Then we change too. Activate Protocol Jericho." Across the Iron Resolve, systems whined as they rerouted power in strange new configurations. The dreadnought's angular profile seemed to shimmer for a moment before stabilizing. On the Xerix scanners, the human ship's signature would now appear fragmented, confusing their targeting systems with dozens of false echoes. The Xarix responded with characteristic precision. Wave after wave of fighters launched from their carriers, swarming toward the human ships like enraged hornets. Their plasma cannons lit up the void with emerald death. "Evasive pattern Delta 9, Vance barked. The Iron Resolve lurched violently as it executed maneuvers no ship its size should have been capable of. The inertial dampeners screamed in protest, throwing several crew members from their stations. Vance watched with grim satisfaction as the Xerix fighters overshot their mark, their perfect formation scattering in confusion. Human point defense turrets roared to life, shredding the disoriented attackers with ruthless efficiency. But the respite was short-lived. A new alert flashed across the main screen. The Xerix capital ships were charging their primary weapons. Not the standard plasma cannons, but something new. Something dangerous. "They've adapted their main batteries," the tactical officer reported, voice tight. "Reading some kind of phased energy signature. Our shields won't hold against that." Vance felt the weight of every eye on the bridge turned to him. The air grew thick with unspoken fear. He could see it in their faces, the creeping doubt. They'd gambled everything on their unconventional tactics, but now the Xerix were learning, adapting. Then his gaze fell on the colony below. New Carthage, home to 8 million civilians. The Xerix fleet was repositioning, not to retreat, but to begin orbital bombardment. A cold fury settled over Vance. He'd known this moment would come, known what it would cost. His hand hovered over the command console, over the unmarked button that would initiate Omega Protocol. "All hands," he said, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Prepare for final engagement sequence." The bridge crew responded with determined nods, their earlier fear replaced by steely resolve. They understood. Some fates were worse than death. As the Xarix fleet moved into bombardment position, the Iron Resolve did something utterly unexpected. It charged directly toward the largest concentration of enemy ships, engines flaring like a dying star. Admiral Vathon's flagship scrambled to respond, but too late. The human dreadnought was among them now, its weapons firing not at ships, but at the very fabric of space itself. Gravity projectors, reverse-engineered from the same technology that powered the Lazarus mines, warped reality around the Xerix formation. Ships collided as their trajectories bent in impossible ways. Weapons fire curved back on their sources. The carefully ordered Xerix battle group descended into utter chaos. And then, the Iron Resolve detonated its core. The explosion wasn't nuclear or plasma-based, but something far stranger. A localized space-time rupture that swallowed 12 Xerix capital ships whole before collapsing in on itself. When the sensors cleared, the remaining Xerix forces found themselves facing not a defeated enemy, but something far more terrifying. The human support ships, previously thought to be minor threats, had reconfigured themselves into a deadly new formation. Their weapons now synchronized, their targeting systems linked through some impossible feat of distributed computation. The message that broadcast across all frequencies needed no translation. You wanted a war, now you have one. As the surviving human ships advanced, their movements took on an almost predatory grace. The Xerix had come expecting to crush an inferior foe. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that grew stronger with every loss, more dangerous with every setback. Somewhere aboard his crippled flagship, Admiral Vathon finally understood the terrible truth. Humanity didn't fight to conquer. They fought to survive. And against such an enemy, no numerical advantage would ever be enough. Not the passive quiet of an uneventful watch, but the deafening absence that follows true devastation. The bridge of the Dominion's will hung in eerie stillness, its once pristine surfaces now scarred by energy burns and shrapnel impacts. Admiral Vathon's carapace ached where flying debris had pierced his exoskeleton, his primary left eye shattered into a web of fractured lenses. The tactical displays told the story in cold, unflinching data streams. 98% casualties. 10,000 ships reduced to drifting wreckage. Against 100 human vessels. Vathon's remaining eye focused on the sole surviving human dreadnought, if it could even be called that anymore. The Iron Resolve was little more than a gutted skeleton, its spine broken amidships, atmosphere venting from a dozen gaping wounds. Yet still it moved, still it fought, limping toward his position with terrifying determination. The other human ships had been destroyed or disabled, yet their sacrifice had bought this final, impossible victory. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. The comms officer's voice trembled, his mandibles clicking uncontrollably. Human frequency. It's their captain. Vathon straightened his battered frame. Put it through. The main viewer flickered to life, revealing a human face streaked with blood and soot. Captain Vance's image wavered as power fluctuated aboard his dying ship, but his eyes burned with undimmed intensity. Even through the distortion, Vathon could see the human's bridge behind him, consoles sparking, bulkheads buckling, crew members frantically attempting damage control. Admiral Vathon. The human's voice was hoarse but steady. Your fleet is destroyed. Your invasion has failed. A violent tremor shook the Iron Resolve, but Vance didn't flinch. I'm offering you one chance to surrender. A bitter laugh escaped Vathon's damaged respiratory vents. You dare demand surrender? Look at your ship, human. You have nothing left. Vance smiled then, a terrifying expression that showed teeth in a way no Xerix ever would. You still don't understand, do you? It was never about the ships. The transmission flickered as another explosion rocked the human vessel. Every minute you've spent fighting us, Every resource you've wasted here." The realization struck Vathan like a plasma bolt. He scrambled for the long-range scanners, his claws trembling as he pulled up the star charts. The human colonies, their fleet movements, the pieces fell into place with horrifying clarity. You used yourselves as bait." Vance's grin widened. "And now the trap is sprung." Behind him, Vathan could see human technicians inputting final commands, their movements frantic but purposeful. "While you've been dying here, our main fleet has retaken 3 of your forward bases. Your supply lines are cut. Your reinforcements will never arrive." The bridge of the Dominion's will seemed to spin around Vathan. Every decision, every battle, all part of some greater human design. They hadn't just outmaneuvered him militarily, they'd outthought him completely. A new alert flashed across his console. The Iron Resolve's core was going critical, not an accident, not desperation, a final, calculated move. "You're insane," Vathan whispered. "You'll die with us." Vance's image began to break up as the transmission degraded. "We knew the price when we took this assignment, Admiral. But tell me." Static swallowed half his words. "Was it worth it? 10,000 ships for one backwater colony?" The transmission cut out abruptly. On the view screen, the Iron Resolve blossomed into a miniature sun, its death throes illuminating the wreckage of 2 fleets. The shockwave slammed into the Dominion's will, sending Vathan crashing to the deck. Alarms wailed as the last of his ship's systems failed in sequence. In the growing darkness, Vathan activated his personal recorder. His voice, when it came, was raw with revelation. "This is Admiral Vathan of the Zarik's Dominion, final log entry. We came to teach humanity the cost of defiance. Instead, they taught us the price of arrogance. They fight not for conquest or glory, but for the simple, terrifying right to exist. Against such an enemy, numbers mean nothing. Technology means nothing. They will burn their own worlds to deny us victory, sacrifice entire fleets to buy time, turn their weaknesses into weapons." The deck plates trembled as secondary explosions rippled through the dying ship. Somewhere in the distance, a bulkhead collapsed with a thunderous crash. "To any Zariks who hear this, turn back. There is only death here. The humans have shown us the truth. Some species cannot be conquered, only angered, and we have made them very, very angry." Double asterisk. The recording ended just as the Dominion's will broke apart, its shattered hull joining the graveyard of dead ships orbiting New Carthage. Far away, on the colony's surface, survivors emerged from bunkers to behold their unlikely salvation, a sky full of burning wreckage and the first hints of dawn breaking through the smoke. The battle was over. The war was just beginning.